You are listening to Packers Talk Radio Network.
PackersTalk.com. Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or non-profit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Alert. Clear all channels.
Fresh from America's Dairyland.
Ladies and gentlemen.
From the Benches Podcast.
Touchdown, Packers. Go Packers!
Packers Talk Radio Network. You're listening to From the Benches with Ross Uglum and Ryan Hilslund.
Hello and welcome back to a normal Monday morning edition of From the Benches. My name is Ross Uglum. I'm a writer at PackersTalk.com, and joining me on this Victory Monday is Ryan Hilslund. Ryan, how are you?
Doing great. Seems a little weird to be recording on a Sunday evening after a little string of Thursday night games, which threw our schedule all off. But yeah, feels pretty good coming off a victory.
It does. With that, we'll get straight into the news. Green Bay beat the Cowboys 28-7 behind 230 rushing yards and no turnovers. A little bit of unfortunate news. Obviously, no Packer game would be complete without an injury, and Sam Shields suffered a concussion. The big news, I think, of the day, Ryan, was probably Mike McCarthy taking over the play calling from Tom Clements. Said that personally it was very difficult, but professionally he felt like he had to do it. And then, all the other teams in the North lost. So Green Bay not only takes an actual one-game lead that's really a two-game lead because of their head-to-head victory over Minnesota, but the Lions and Bears are now completely out of it. The division is a two-team race, and a race that Green Bay is currently leading. And then as far as progression of players that have been injured, Montgomery still probably a week away. He did not go today. And then Corey Linsley did not go either. J.C. Treader getting the start. Ryan, let's talk right away about the new McCarthy-led offense. 4 touchdown drives and 1 drive that ended on 4th and goal from the 1. So all in all, I guess you'd call it 5 scoring drives or 5 scoring quality drives. Do you feel like what do you think McCarthy did differently here? And then do you think he's fixed the offense?
I think it's a little bit simplistic to just say that now McCarthy took over the plays and now the offense is fixed. He did do some things that I liked in terms of creativity in the passing offense, which I feel like we've talked about a little bit in the last few weeks. It seemed like he was doing some different things with Cobb over the middle of the field. We're going to talk about how he looked a little bit later, but it kind of seemed like this is what we were expecting out of Randall Cobb and the offense a little bit without Jordy Nelson in there. Kind of since we learned that Jordy was going to be out, we obviously you expect that there's not going to be the downfield threat that Jordy is. You're not going to have that really great chemistry with your number one receiver that Rodgers and Jordy had, but you felt like the offensive staff was going to be able to put the weapons that they did have in position to be successful. And I don't know if Clements really was able to do that. It looked like McCarthy came out and was able to put players in position to be successful, in position for Rodgers to make something happen more often than Clements was able to, especially in the part of the season where the Packers struggled. So I did like what McCarthy did, especially in terms of what he did in terms of creativity in the passing offense, particularly with Randall Cobb. I thought Randall was in a bunch of positions that Clements just kind of wasn't putting him in.
I agree. Some of the Randall Cobb stuff in the backfield, we'll talk about that in the behind the benches part of the show. But even, that screen design to James Starks for the passing touchdown was really, really nice. I appreciated that play design and obviously that play call in that scenario. But I think the number one thing, and we're going to talk about this right now, is that he leaned a little bit more heavily on the run game, and he got Eddie Lacy going, which has been an issue all season long, up and down play. He had 2 good games in a row, missed curfew, and then bang, today, over 100 yards with a touchdown, looked great, breaking tackles. That long run to set up his 1-yard touchdown was, as far as I'm concerned, the most impressive run out of Lacy all season. And man, when he gets a head of steam going, he's really, really hard to bring down. Is Eddie Lacy back? I mean, good games, 3 out of the last 4, and then obviously, that game against Detroit, he was just benched. That was not a performance-based situation. How comfortable, Ryan, do you feel with Eddie Lacy moving forward for the rest of the season?
Oh, I feel perfectly comfortable with him at this point. After, like you said, he had those 2 good games in a row, and then effectively gets benched last week. So you kind of had a little bit of a question mark. Obviously, he came out today, looked really good. 24 for 124, got into the end zone. He looked very Eddie Lacy-like, and that basically puts him at 3 games in a row where he's gotten the work, where he's been able to be effective. I think the Lions game where he got benched you're gonna look back and say that was obviously a fluke. I think he's gonna get it going now. I think McCarthy said something that about it really being a wake up call for Eddie, and I think that's what you're going to look at it as. He had a couple of games where he was effective. He slipped a little bit mentally with the missing curfew, and then he came back and looked like himself. And I think hopefully he's on track. He's going to look for the rest of the season like we expect him to look all season. He looked very good, and then Starks behind him looked very, very good also. 11 carries for 71 yards and very good in the passing game also. It was a good day for the running backs today.
I agree, and you could kind of tell, too, after the game in that post-game interview with Aaron Andrews that he just really felt like he's got it turned around and that he needed to refocus. Even made reference to getting himself right with God and just changing the way that he thinks about football, because he even thanked McCarthy for taking football away from him to make him remember how much he needs it and how much he loves it. So I think that it was, a bold move by McCarthy to take Lacy out of that game. Green Bay was lucky to get a win there, but it might have turned around the season, because if they can run the ball this well on offense, once some of the guys get back on offense, Montgomery, Corliss, things like that, maybe the passing game opens up a little bit. You could be right back at having a very, very good offense. And I know Dallas is only average on defense, but they are just that. They're average. They're not bad. So it was good to see 28 points, good to see 5 drives that, got to at least the 1-yard line. And so let's dive behind the benches here, and let's talk a little bit about just the strict X's and O's stuff that we saw and maybe stuff that we hope to see when the Packers do get a little bit healthier, specifically when Ty Montgomery is able to return. Ryan, go ahead and get into it.
Yeah, you did see finally some of that Randall Cobb in the backfield. He got a couple of runs. He was back there a few different times, and that's some of that creativity. And you hope to see that for the rest of the season. Randall wasn't especially effective out of the backfield. He had three carries for 9 yards. Nothing that blows your mind, but you do that stuff to hopefully break a big one, to have a game breaking play every once in a while when you're running those plays that he hopefully maybe breaks off a 25-yard touchdown, maybe springs a first down on a handoff out of the backfield. But the fact that they've gone back to that a little bit, and like you said, when Ty Montgomery comes back, all of a sudden they've got two guys that can do that out of the backfield. They can throw a receiver in the backfield. You can give the defense a different look. You can give them, a look where maybe it looks like 5 wide with Cobb and Montgomery and Adams and Jones all out there, and then you line up and you've got either Montgomery in the backfield or Cobb in the backfield or both of them in the backfield, and you're able to do some different things. And if you've got Ty Montgomery out of the backfield, you have the threat to run, but then you also have Cobb in the slot and doing some things that he did today, which we finally saw. That's a big wrinkle for the offense. It opens up a lot of creativity in the playbook for McCarthy, assuming McCarthy sticks with the play calling for the rest of the season. If he's able to throw those looks at a defense, to throw no huddle with 4 receivers and a tight end, and then come out with some guys in the backfield, throw some different looks at a defense. It's going to be very important for the rest of the season. And it's big. It's a whole different level of stuff. It just kind of disappeared. We saw it early in the season with both of those guys out there. You saw Montgomery in the backfield. You saw Cobb in the backfield. It disappeared when Montgomery got injured, and hopefully they're finally seeing that it's a positive for the offense. You don't have to have Starks or Lacy out there for a whole series. You can run a series where it's just Cobb or just Montgomery in the backfield, or it's just empty backfield stuff. You can get creative with that kind of thing, and you can show the defense different looks. And then the next series, you can come out and you can run 4 straight Eddie Lacy runs at a defense. It's a very good way to keep the defense off balance, to keep them guessing, to keep the upper hand as an offense, and it's something I hope McCarthy's able to stick with for the rest of the year, for the games upcoming.
I agree, and I think part of it too with what he did from an X's and O's standpoint was, I'm gonna go back and work with my guys and get my guys open, and these are the players that I know how to put in the right positions to win games. These are the guys that I used to call plays for, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to get Eddie Lacy going. We're going to get James Starks going. We're going to get Randall Cobb going. We're not going to run 13 plays for Davante Adams when he's not playing great. We're not going to force the ball to Richard Rodgers in the flat when that guy hasn't ever broken a tackle. We're going to get the ball into Randall Cobb. We're going to get Eddie Lacy going. We're going to get Starks going. And you know what? Just to prove that I'm back, I'm going to run 5 plays for John Kuhn.
Oh yeah, that was you saw him in the box score, a carry for 2 yards, and then a nice little screen pass for 14 yards. The bar I was watching at exploded for John Kuhn on that first down that he picked up on the pass. And yeah, you're right. That was a little vintage McCarthy. We didn't see that at all with Clements calling the plays.
Yeah, you for sure knew that Mike was calling the plays when he got Kuhn involved. But you're right. I mean, the four wide or the 5 receiver sets, and I don't really care if they're receivers or tight ends at this point. It doesn't really matter. But that stuff becomes so much more versatile with Montgomery and Cobb because both players are capable of running the football. So it'll be interesting to see how often they utilize that. It seems, like they do, they do enjoy running the ball with Starks, with Lacy. It's plenty effective. I know I got a lot of, just because of my standing as far as, being a North Dakota State fan and covering that team, I got a lot of, hey, why isn't Crockett going? What's the deal with John being inactive? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, to be honest with you, Packers fans and Bison fans, I would not be expecting tons of John Crockett in the near future. With Montgomery and Cobb as the third running back, you only really need to carry 2 on game day. And the only reason that Crockett honestly was up that day was because Ripkowski was either injured or sick. I don't remember which one, and they needed another back for special team stuff. So I think at this point, you're probably going to see them go forward with Lacy and go forward with Starks, and that's totally fine. I mean, that if they can, and they won't run the ball like this all the time. I mean, I'd be very surprised to see the Packers eclipsing 200 yards rushing very often, especially, in the postseason or as this season moves forward and they play better teams. But at the same time, getting that run game going when the passing game is struggling without Jordy Nelson is so important. And I thought that McCarthy did a fantastic job today to get an offense that, and at this point, it is what it is. I mean, this is how good the offense is. So to get this version of the Packers offense, 5 scoring quality drives, I think was a good job, and I think a lot of that credit has to go to McCarthy. Let's flip to the other side of the ball here. And this was not a game full of change. This was a game full of more of the same. And more of the same is Damarious Randall being freaking good at football. Ryan, how awesome is Damarious Randall?
Quite awesome. He's been a breath of fresh air. We've talked about it countless times on the show this season. He's been very good. He's done everything you've asked him to do. He went out today, and when Shields went down with an injury, he went and covered Des Bryant and did a pretty good job. Now, obviously, it's Matt Castle getting the ball to Des Bryant, so maybe it makes his job a little bit easier. But on the near catch by Des Bryant, which was one of the first couple plays after Shields went out, Randall was in perfect position, and I thought he got the interception right away. And then I had to sit down after cheering when I thought that Bryant made the catch, and then you see the replay that he probably didn't make the catch. But yeah, Randall continues to go out there and play really well, and it's certainly a positive step for the defense to have a guy out there who can step in for Sam Shields, who can be a quality quarter on his own, regardless of whether he's covering the number 1 or the number 2 guy. He's out there playing really well as a cornerback, and not even just really well for a rookie cornerback. He's playing at at above average starter cornerback level for anybody, regardless of whether he's a rookie or not. He's playing really well. He's going out there. He's making plays when you need him to. He's not getting exposed, which you expect every once in a while out of a rookie. Damarious Randall's a really, really big reason the defense is playing really well this season.
I agree, and I think, even looking into the future, he and Shields as the 2 outside corners are a really nice-looking tandem. He's an exceptional tackler, which I think is something that gets overlooked a little bit. At the same time, Quentin Rollins needs to work on that. I mean, he had a couple of big tackles today, but they were like shoulder spearing type stuff, not wrapping up. He's learning and obviously utilizing his athleticism, which is tremendous, to kind of move forward with such limited experience actually even playing football. But Randall's the exact opposite. He is tackling extremely well, and I wasn't afraid when Shields went down. I mean, yeah, you want him available, And I definitely would like to see him available against Oakland. But I had no worries about Randall coming in and shutting down Dez Bryant, especially with Matt Castle at quarterback. I didn't think that Castle was going to be able to get it done against Randall, even with Dez Bryant to throw to. And Dez didn't help himself with a couple of big drops in that game, but Randall had the clamps on him all game long. And just big shout, Ted Thompson. What can we say? We were wrong again. He was right again. And eventually, when we cover a draft and he picks something that we don't understand, I'm just going to shut up because he's a lot smarter than any of us. And that's why he's, the general manager of the Green Bay Packers, and you and I are doing this. So that's...
That is well said.
That is the main point there. Let's talk a little bit about Quentin Rollins and just the cornerback configuration. Where do these guys go personnel wise? It's always something that you and I enjoy talking about, and different skill sets and things like that. Rollins ended up outside when Shields went down in the nickel, and Hayward stayed in the slot. Micah Hyde basically played like this hybrid linebacker thing where he literally followed Jason Witten wherever he went. And Mike actually had a pretty decent day doing that. But what did you think about Rollins, who we both view as the slot corner, as a slot corner and possibly the slot corner of the future if Casey Hayward isn't re-signed? And then they'd go with a Shields and Randall outside with Rollins in the slot type of thing. What did you think of him as an outside corner today, and what do you think of him in that position long term?
I think he's fine as an outside corner. He's done some things on the outside that you like in a rookie season, and I think it's better to have Rollins on the outside with Hayward at the slot, where he's a much better player. I think Rollins. I think you're right that Rollins that is a better slot corner overall. But I think he has a little bit more versatility. I think he drops off a little less when he goes to the outside than compared with Hayward. Hayward, when he started out on the outside this season, I don't think he played very well. So I think it's nice that the coaching staff has realized that the slot is Hayward's best position by far, and he loses a lot of his effectiveness when he has to go outside and cover a receiver. So I like Rollins on the outside. He's able to do a little bit of both. I don't know if he'll ever be as good a slot corner as Hayward is, but I certainly think he's going to be a better outside corner than Hayward. So I like it. I'm for it. If Shields has to miss some time, I'm all right with that being the nickel configuration. I think Rollins is going to be able to play that position relatively effectively, and you definitely like Hayward sticking in the slot where he's most effective.
Yeah, and one guy too to consider is Ladarius Gunter. Obviously, he wasn't up today, but at the same time, he's a guy long term on the outside that provides a little bit of depth. So it's easier to view Rollins as a versatile prospect. He doesn't have to be a slot corner. He doesn't have to be an outside corner. But depending on what they do with Casey Hayward moving forward, that's going to have a lot of impact on what happens with Rollins. And I think that he's an exceptional player. Like I said, I'd like to see him, and this is going to sound stupid, but I'd like to see him get a little bit better at football. And a lot of the gifts that he has makes him an above-average player right now. And I think if he learns a little bit more about how to play football, he could really be a star. And he and Randall moving forward could really be stars. And in a league that throws the ball like this one, that's going to be extremely important for the future and honestly extremely important for the rest of this season as Green Bay might have to be without Shields for a little bit. You just never know with concussions. Sometimes, there's certainly a chance. I'm not super familiar with Shields' long-term concussion history. There's certainly a chance he could play against Oakland. There's a chance he might not be back until the playoffs. It's obviously every concussion is serious and every concussion is on a case-by-case basis. Ryan, another guy that looked good, flipping back to the offense, was Randall Cobb. And then this is a kid that has struggled, all season long, but today, his reunion with Mike McCarthy, the play caller went very well. He had, I think, 8 catches or something around there, and then was also allowed to run the ball a few times, though I wish that the toss play would just, no matter who they're running it to, I wish that the toss play would just be eliminated from the playbook. Ryan, what did you see from Randall Cobb that you haven't seen for most of this season?
He was finally open over the middle of the field. He was able to do some quick routes over the middle. He was able to. They got him matched up against linebackers a couple times. He was finally able to do the things he's always been able to do. His stat line looked like a classic Randall Cobb stat line: 8 catches, 81 yards. That's what you thought he was going to be able to do all season. He was going to be able to be that short yardage guy. He was going to be able to get those 6-7 yards when you needed him. He was going to be able to get open when you got a good matchup. You have to wonder where this was all season. Was it because Clements was using him improperly? Were they trying to make him more like a number 1 receiver, and he wasn't able to do those things on the outside against good corners? Did they not? Was it injuries holding him back? You wonder why this hasn't been the Randall Cobb all season. He looked like he did last season when he just seemed like he was always open over the middle. Rodgers was able to find him, and you convert first downs, or you're tiptoeing along the sideline, turning a first down into a long gain, or you're everything that Randall Cobb is able to do. It looked like he did today. Now, 8 for 81 isn't a gigantic game, but it's a pretty solid game out of a slot corner. And then, like you said, got some carries out of the backfield, got some looks in the backfield. You think he probably gets a little bit more effective with that as that's ongoing, as he hasn't played in the backfield really at all over the last handful of games. So hopefully that is more of a threat going forward. But I mean, it's hard to put a finger on it. He was just finally able to do what Randall Cobb does, and if that's on Clements for not being able to do that all season, then kudos to Mike McCarthy for taking over the play calling again and using Randall Cobb like Randall Cobb's supposed to be used.
I agree, and two, I think part of what happened today was a sign of just how badly this whole thing has gone on offense. Ryan, the Cowboys spent most of their day in the base defense, and Randall Cobb was being covered by Barry Church, who's a strong safety, and a little bit by Sean Lee as well, but he's a linebacker. I mean, they were playing a 4-3 and just going straight cover 1, covering Randall Cobb with a strong safety and letting J.J. Wilcox play cover 1 free, and I mean, that's kind of how far the mighty have fallen. And obviously, they were able to have success to some degree. And honestly, 8 for 81 is pretty impressive in an NFL game when your offense produces 230 yards of rushing, because there just aren't going to be that many passing yards to go around. The team was playing with the lead the whole time. 8 for 81 made him pretty clearly the Packers' leading receiver. So that doesn't concern me one bit. It's just, it'll be interesting to see now if teams will start playing nickel again. I think that a lot of teams have stayed in their base defense because they aren't scared of the Packers receivers winning one-on-one matchups, and they understand that if they can shut down Eddie Lacy and make Rodgers throw it between 50 and 60 times, that Green Bay is going to have a problem. And I think when you go base, that really does sort of dare the Packers to throw the ball. And I know that sounds insane, daring Aaron Rodgers, who you and I agree is the best quarterback in the league, to throw it, but there's something a little bit off with him, and he's missing Jordy Nelson, and that is a serious problem. Sticking with the offense, let's talk a little bit about the offensive line play today. A lot of good, a lot of bad. Running left was still a problem. They had multiple major lost yardage plays going to the left. Bakhtari really is still struggling as a run blocker, but with Bach, you get the good and the bad. I mean, he was fantastic in pass protection all day long. Yes, Greg Hardy got a sack, but Greg Hardy was playing defensive tackle on that play and beat T.J. Lang. He did not beat Bakhtiari. I don't think that Bakhtiari could be credited with either of the 2 sacks that Rodgers took, but at the same time, 2 sacks is too many. Rodgers can't be getting hit as often as he is right now. You saw him limping multiple times during this game. He is hurt. I don't think he's injured, but he definitely is hurt. Screen blocking was great. They ran for 230 yards. That's great. They got called for holding a whole bunch of times. That's not great. Ryan, as the resident offensive tackle on this podcast, what was your opinion of what the offensive line was able to put on film tonight?
Yeah, you got plenty of ups and downs. Obviously, when you run for over 200 yards, you did something right. It wasn't all Eddie Lacy making people miss on the hole and getting yards after contact. There was a little bit of that, but there were creases for him to find. There were creases for James Starks to find. Like you said, the screen game was fantastic, and they've been good in the screen game for the last handful of games. The big screenplay that sticks out is the one that Starks kind of screwed up in the I think it was the Lions game when it was they had the screen going down towards the end zone, and Starks kind of juked the defender into himself and made Lang miss that block. But the lines looked very good in the screen game. Starks has been a weapon with screens. Lacy hasn't had the opportunities, obviously, with the benching, but they've looked very good in the screen game. They're improving the run game, like I talked about last week. Lang and Sitton have their PFF grades over the season have brought them both up into the top 10 for guards, and that was not where they were after the first handful of games. They were struggling early. They've turned that around. They had another good game today. Sitton had a hold call on a run that brought it back, and hopefully that doesn't continue to be a trend, but they look good. But the tackles, the guards have looked great. Troutter's been very good filling in at the center position. But like you said, Bakhtiari continues to struggle in the run game, and Bulaga hasn't really been himself this season. He hasn't been the great run blocker which we've seen in the past. He's been fine in pass protection, but he just hasn't been that greater in the run game on the right side that we're used to seeing. The Lang Bulaga combo has been very good, and he's kind of just been average this season. So we're getting very good guard play. We're getting good center play, whether it's been Lindsley or Treader, and the tackles have been just okay. Bakhtiari's been poor in the run game, good in pass protection the last handful of weeks. Balaga's kind of just been average at both, and you're seeing some good guard play. Lang and Sitton are playing like you expect them to play, and you're seeing those holes open. You're seeing the running game be effective. We talked about it. I talked about that being, the reason Crockett was able to come in and be effective right away. Starks has kind of continued to be relatively effective, and you're seeing Eddie Lacy finally come into his own with three solid games when he's been given an opportunity. I think the line's been playing very good. They're still getting some mental mistakes with the holding calls and with some poor protection calls, but I think overall they've turned it around. We talked about the early before the season, this being the best offensive line of the McCarthy-Rodgers era. They certainly did not play like that in the beginning of the season. They're not there yet now late in the season, but they're much closer. The guards are playing well, center's playing well. If Bulaga can get back to what you expect Bulaga to play like, then the offensive line can look like that best offensive line that we've seen in this era. And if you can get that going in the end of the season for a playoff run, it's going to be very, very good. If Rodgers can get hot, if the running game can stay hot, the offense can finally turn around and play well in the second half of the season. If the offensive line can keep that level of play up.
And, it's possible that Brian might be a little bit nicked. He did have to miss that last game. Don Barclay played right tackle against Detroit, as far as I remember. And so he might not be at 100%. Pass pro was a little iffy for him today, but he did some things that I really liked in the run game. Obviously, I haven't had a chance, and neither of you, to review this game, all 22 or even TV copies. So it'll be interesting to kind of break this down a little bit more when have the time. Ryan, just one quick question, and I need a quick answer before we dive into the Oakland game. Are you worried about Davante Adams long term?
I mean, I'm worried that Davante Adams is, we talked about early before the season when everybody thought he was the off-season MVP, he was going to have to fill in for Jordy Nelson to be that number one receiver. I'm worried that he's not going to ever be able to step up, and, to say he's not going to be a Jordy Nelson ever is probably it's not fair to say that it's the criticism that he's not going to be Jordy Nelson, but I don't know if he hasn't showed me anything this season that says he can be that number one guy, that he can be the threat that goes out and challenges your number one corner, that is a threat every single week. I still think he can be a solid second, third receiver. He obviously hasn't been that this season, but with what we saw last season, with what we saw in a handful of games where he got an opportunity, I think he can be effective. I think his ceiling maybe turns into more like a James Jones, as opposed to a Jordy Nelson, and that's great. James Jones led the NFL in touchdowns, catching passes from Aaron Rodgers. So if you temper your expectations, if Davante Adams' ceiling is now James Jones, that's great. Fine, we spent a second-round pick. We got another James Jones. That's fantastic. But I think I am worried that he's not going to be the star that we were talking about before the season started.
I am worried a little bit too. I think that was kind of a comp for him coming out of Fresno State. The James Jones comparison, not the fastest kid ever, but great hands, good ball skills, good red zone threat. I think that you'll see, another leap from him next year, especially having Nelson across from him again. But I do worry. At the same time, he was a sophomore. He was a redshirt sophomore coming out of, what I guess I would call mid-major football. So it's tough to come out of a conference like that after only playing 2 years of college football. And he had a decent rookie year against, the other team's second or third best corner, depending on how they dealt with their nickel situation. But this year has been disappointed, and I'm just gonna reserve judgment at this point, and hopefully we'll see a little bit of progress moving forward, and at the same time hoping for a better 2016. Let's dive into the Raiders game. This is a team that was the laughingstock of the NFL for most of the 2000s after their Super Bowl run, and then the early 2010s as well. They hired former Packers front office guy Reggie McKenzie, and he, despite maybe the first couple years not getting a ton of wins, really seems to have put together a heck of a team. Speaking obviously of former Packers, Charles Woodson is a star at free safety, even as old as he is. That's a little tough to watch happen, because I always felt like his progression at a later age was going to be to that free safety spot, and it wasn't allowed to happen in Green Bay, and they had to invest a first-round pick in HaHa Clinton-Dix. Granted, HaHa Clinton-Dix looks like a very good player, but maybe that resource could have been used a little bit differently, and we could be in the the tail end of a Hall of Fame career for Woodson, just as a Packer. But I guess I digress a little bit. McKenzie's gotten them some really good young players. Derek Carr is the quarterback. He was the first pick of the second round a couple years ago. Appears to be maybe even a little bit better than competent. And to be honest with you, especially if you're watching what's going on right now between Houston and New England, competency is difficult to find at the quarterback position, much less what I would consider above average play. And when you have a quarterback, you have a chance, and that's just the way that this NFL works now. And then I think, and Ryan, we were talking about this a little bit in the pre-production meeting, I think they got the the best player in the draft in the last 2 drafts, even though they didn't pick first either time. 2 years ago, they selected Khalil Mack, who is like a Clay Matthews type player, or even a Von Miller type player, just quite a bit younger. And then, this season, Amari Cooper is just a fantastic rookie wide receiver, and a guy that I think in year 2, certainly in year 3, is going to be regarded in that Julio Jones and AJ Green conversation, because you're going to get kind of past the point where you're talking about Calvin Johnson, and so those 3 guys, or those 2 guys, as well as Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh, and then Amari Cooper, are going to be discussed as who is the best receiver in the league, because I think that's the type of player that Cooper is right now showing he's eventually going to be. Ryan, what worries you about the Oakland matchup, and what gives you a little bit of hope?
Yeah, like you said, this is a team that's certainly on the rise, and you attribute that to, like I said, knocking the first-round pick out of the park for 2 straight years, and taking a pretty solid quarterback in the second round also. I think you see in Derek Carr a guy who can, have an Andy Dalton kind of career. Another guy who was taken in the second round. I think he's ahead of Andy Dalton's trajectory, but certainly not a bad comparison if you can be that good at quarterback with a second round guy, and then get guys like Amari Cooper, like Khalil Mack in the first round. Put them with guys who are solid all the way around the rest of the team. That's certainly a core that is going to be able to succeed in the NFL. They're not terrible anywhere. They're solid kind of all the way around the field if they're not elite anywhere. So, they've got Latavius Murray at running back, Derek Carr quarterback, Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree at receiver. That's a solid offensive core. Nothing that you would call elite quite yet. Like you said, Cooper could be that guy in his second, third, fourth year in the league. But as a rookie, I think he's a guy you can keep in check. Michael Crabtree is pretty much a known commodity. He's having a solid year. Latavius Murray, not a guy who's going to light you up at the running back spot. And Derek Carr is not a guy who's going to take over the game at the quarterback spot. So on offense, I think they're solid but not spectacular. And I think it's kind of the same thing on defense. Khalil Mack is a very, very good player as an edge defender. Like you said, Charles Woodson is having a solid year at safety, but they're not fantastic at corner. They're not fantastic at safety. They're not fantastic at linebacker, but I don't think there's a hole really anywhere there. So I think this is a team that the Packers should be able to handle. They should, obviously a more veteran team. This Oakland team is quite young. Most of their core players are in their first few years in the league. This is a team that the Packers should be able to go in and take care of on the road, but they certainly have the pieces so that they can, they can put a game together and beat anybody. I don't think it's out of the question that Oakland can put a game together and beat any team in the league, but they're also not a guarantee to win every the games against the bad teams on their schedule either. I think they're a year or 2 away from being a contending type of team, a really good type of team. So hopefully this is a team that the Packers are able to take care of. You saw a pretty good showing on offense today with McCarthy taking the play calling over. The defense continued to play really well, only giving up seven points. So nothing really scares me in this game, jumping out from the matchups. But I certainly see potential that Carr and Cooper can get hot, or Carr and Crabtree could get hot, or Murray could rip off a couple games, and something could happen. I could see this game as a loss for the Packers, but nothing jumps off the page for me looking at the matchup saying that the Packers are going to lose this game. So I think this is a game that the Packers should take care of business in, but it would not shock me if they came out of next Sunday with a loss.
I agree, and that's kind of the scary part about this, especially when you're paying attention to What's going on with the Raiders? I mean, they're a team that just beat the Broncos, who you and I have a tremendous amount of respect for, especially after that game coming off of the bye. And
beat the Broncos on the road after we got kicked in Denver.
Right, but the week before they got trashed by the Chiefs, and they got trashed by the Vikings, and they got beat by the Lions. I mean, and obviously, we lost the game to the Lions too, but I just can't figure this team out. They're tough. They're just tough to figure out. They remind me a little bit of like the 08 Packers, that Aaron Rodgers' first year team that went 6-10, and it just, you felt like it never quite got figured out, but that there was something very special brewing, and that's what I think's going on in Oakland. And I think that's a interesting situation because Phillip Rivers is not maybe long for the Chargers. Manning obviously is done with the Broncos. That AFC West division could be open for the Raiders to slide right in there very, very soon, and kind of be a two-team thing with them and the Chiefs possibly if Denver's salary cap spending in the last 3 years comes back to haunt them in the way that I believe that it's going to. It'll be interesting to see, but just based on for this Sunday's game, I mean, I could see Green Bay winning by 17. I could see Green Bay losing by 4. There's a lot depends on how Oakland plays, and maybe they have an emotional letdown from the Broncos win. And at the same time, I think that they are after today's games are pretty much out of the playoffs. So maybe there's a little bit of a letdown from that. They are only 6-7. It seems like even if they win out, they're not going to be able to qualify for the postseason. So there might be a letdown from that. There might be a letdown from the Broncos game. There might just be inconsistencies from being a young team. But we'll see. If Green Bay can establish the run early and kind of get going. They've been a pretty reasonably good road team so far this year. Have the Packers, not world beaters by any stretch, but they have a chance to go, 5-3 or 6-2 on the road, and that's a number that they didn't get to last year. They were 4-4 as a road team a season ago, and they're going to have to lose their next 2 games to go 4-4 on the road this season, and that would be certainly disappointing, but with a game in Arizona and a game against Oakland coming up here, definitely possible. Ryan, it's prediction time. Why don't you go ahead and go first, and then I will offer my thoughts.
I've got a prediction of 24-17. I think the Packers do pull this off. I think it would be hard for me to pick against the Packers in this game. But I do think it could be close. I think, like I said, the Raiders are a team that certainly are capable of beating the Packers, particularly at home. But I think they do get it done. I think they do get a touchdown victory on the road in Oakland, 24-17.
I've got 24-20. I think it's a maybe even a comeback victory with a late Rodgers touchdown. Let's call it a late Rodgers touchdown to Davante Adams that kind of flips the narrative on Adams' season. I will go that deep into my prediction. So we'll see how that goes. 24-20 Pack. Guys, we're going to wrap up the show. Thanks as always for listening. If you get the feeling, go ahead and subscribe to the Packers Talk Network on iTunes. Leave us a rating. That kind of stuff helps us jump up the charts. It helps us show up faster when people search for football or search for Aaron Rodgers, search for the Packers, etc., etc. As usual, we appreciate the ratings with 5 stars. You can follow me at Ross Uglum. You can follow Ryan
at Hillsland358.
You can follow the Packers Talk Radio Network at Packers Talk net or the show itself at From the Benches. Thank you once again for listening, and go Pack Go.
From the benches. From the benches.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or non-profit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.